Good evening, listeners. This is Bless Radio. It's Tuesday night, the spiritual discussion program. And this is Saad here in the studio. And very soon I'm going to have my colleagues joining us, Gregory and Mena. So we'll welcome them in a minute. Here tonight in London, it is been a warm, lovely day, I will say. Not much rain. A few clouds, but yes, nice and warm today. So dear listeners, welcome to the show. This is the spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the grail message by Abdushin. And yes, the topic we are going to be discussing tonight is self-interest and self-control. So yes, I'm just going to welcome my two colleagues, Gregory. And the aim of the show, listeners, is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the grail message. I'm just going to get my colleagues online now. Let's see. We're going to call Gregory. Greetings, Gregory. Welcome, Gregory.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Very well.
Okay, brilliant. Welcome to the show. I'm just going to put Mena online too. Just a second. Make sure that he's with us. Yeah. Okay. Let's have them online. Okay, Mena. Are you there? Hello, Mena. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good evening. Welcome to the show. Gregory's with us here. Please, Gregory, tell us where you are and how is the weather where you are?
I'm in Brussels and the weather has been okay.
All right.
Not too warm.
Not too warm. Okay. And Mena, where are you and how is the weather where you are?
Yeah, I'm in the heartland, and the weather has been, fantastic. It's been sunny today, so yeah.
Sunny. Very good. Very good. So, dear listeners, I want to say a few things before we start the regular way. First of all, we are broadcasting on a new website, brand new website. It's called www.blessradio.co.uk. I'll say it again, www.blessradio.co.uk. So please don't go to the old website that is no longer functioning. And we will also broadcasting on tunein.com. I believe it's Bless FM still. So we're still on the same. It may be Bless FM or it may be Bless Radio. So apologies. Oh, Bless Radio. Okay, so look for that when you go into tunein.com. And then also, as always, we are on YouTube, and you can go on youtube.com and then search for Bless Radio 1, the number 1, and then space live stream. I'll spell that. So Bless Radio, BLESS Radio, RADIO, and the number 1, not the spelling of 1, number 1, and then space live stream. So, and hope you'll like the look of the new website. There are many ways to actually contact us now. There's Twitter there. All the addresses are on the website. Twitter is there. You can send a message on that website to us as well. And of course, we have our favorite phone number, which we normally use, which is for UK 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. So I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Abdushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world. a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic element as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. And I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, I just want to remind you that the topic for tonight is self-interest and self-control. And you can join us with any question or comments. The number to contact us is UK 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Gregory and Mena, I was looking in the dictionary today before coming on the show, and I was looking up what is self-interest, and this is what I found. It says one's personal interest or advantage, especially when pursued without regard for others. So now, when you look at that, I'll just say it again, self-interest, one's personal interest or advantage, especially when pursued with regard for others. So, Gregory, can I ask you, self-interest, is that basically something you can say negative and sort of harmful, or can it actually be beneficial?
Actually, you mentioned the dictionary definition or web definition of self-interest. There is absolutely nothing wrong with self-interest if this interest harmonizes with the laws of creation through which each individual, each personality came into existence. It is when we have the scenario where there is one-sidedness without regards to the others. By others, one is referring to human beings, the environment, and many more. So self-interest is excellent when it harmonizes with the laws of creation.
So, sorry, I'm just hearing some background sound. I don't know, Mena, is this, just can you mute yourself when you're not talking?
No, it's not me.
It's not
I
you.
don't think it's not from my end.
Okay, I don't know, it's just coming from somewhere. So just to be aware. And somebody said my voice is echoing. So I know we set up a new system. So yes, that's what somebody sent a text to me. So okay, yes. So I will just say, listeners, yeah, if there's anything with the broadcast that you're observing, please let us. If it's not the way it should, the best quality, please let us know so we can do something about that. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Gregory, for your answer there. Yes. So what you have said really is that when our self-interest aligns with the laws of nature or creation, then we do get it's beneficial. So in that sense, you could say it is self-interest is also natural. Is that right, Gregory? We are meant to have a self-interest. I mean, that we are meant to express our self-interest.
Of course, we should have self-interest. Self, that means that of the spirit. We should not forget that the individual started as an unconscious spirit gem, and the interests or the goal is to become a self-conscious spirit gem. With that, it is given the free will to make decisions. So, if it doesn't make decisions which are not beneficial to the self, how can it then achieve the goal? So, self-interest is beneficial anytime it swings unconditionally within the laws of nature or the laws of creation.
Yes, thank you for that, Gregory. Because I just Mena, you want to say something?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if Gregory would like to clarify self-interest when looked at from the point of view where your emotions, your thoughts, and your behavior are actually pursued without regards for others, and that is where your self-interest. That's where how we define self-interest. When your thoughts and your actions and your volition are actually pursued without regards for others. How do you see? How does that? How is that beneficial? How would you rate that as?
The key here is the self. The self is referring to the inner core of man, which is of spirit. Given the opportunity, the spirit will make decisions such that it will draw it closer to its origin. It is because we have the scenario where the spirit has been indolent and has allowed the intellect to take over or to usurp the throne. That is where the problem had always been. For if the spirit we're agile enough, we're mobile enough, it will make decisions which will be of benefit.
So,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, when everything is of benefit, but when you rate it, when it is rated above the interests of others, like if you have maybe a tube of yam to share among two or three other persons, and you decide to take half of it, leaving the others, with the remaining half. That is, the self-interest we're talking about. How is that one? How do you think? How does that actually um, harmonize with the laws of nature? And how would you see that as
That is the
benefiting?
scenario. That is the scenario where the intellect had been given unrestricted reign, because the intellect is unable to see the overall picture. And therefore, those qualities which have been granted the spirit for spiritual maturing, the intellect has taken over and has diverted or distorted what the self-interest should be. That has always been the problem, and that is always the problem.
thank you, Gregory, for that. I just want to sort of expand on something you said earlier about the spirit. You mentioned that we started as a spirit germ, unconscious spirit germ, and they were meant to turn into a conscious or self-conscious spirit germ. Can you just tell us what is a spirit germ first, so that I don't know if people have heard that term before?
The word spirit gem has to do with the inner core of man, of spirit, in its unconscious state. It is referred to as a spirit gem because it needs to be planted, or it needs to move out to experience and then germinate. Hence that word germ. For when, like we have crops, they are planted in a soil, they grow, they germinate. Inside the germ, there are talents which had been instilled into it. The purpose of that journey which it needs to undertake is to allow these innate talents to come to fruition. It has to do it by itself. It has to do it so that there will be interest. Just like you plant a grain of corn in the soil, it doesn't just yield a grain of corn. There are interests. It is the multiple. Hence, one is referring to, in a spiritual sense, self-interest. It's not bad at all. It is encouraged. It is beneficial. Only when in its activities it swings with the laws of creation.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I think.
No, no.
Okay,
Sorry.
go on,
Can I
Nana.
come in?
Yeah, go on.
Gregory, would it not be better to put it that when it has when your self-interest has regards for others, not necessarily it swings in the law of nature, because it might swing in the law of nature, but it harms the others. Don't you think so, Gregory? Yeah, you might.
When it is mentioned, the self is not the intellect. The self is the spirit. And it is the spirit that really experiences. So, Given the opportunity, many a time, if the spirit is not indolent, it will make decisions which, to a large extent, will swing with the laws of creation. Those distortions you are mentioning is a scenario which has arisen through the intellect. For the intellect is unable to see the bigger picture. The intellect is not tied here to the earth. It's a product of the frontal brain and is limited to the earthly conceptions of space and also of time. Therefore, his decisions are so limited. That is why the possibility then exists that he makes decisions which are so very narrow. Whereas when the spirit is mobile enough, the opportunity is there that it will choose that which will be helpful to it in itself. So the emphasis should be placed on the self, not on the intellect.
Gregory, I just had something in my head enter in my head now. Basically, we are supposed to self-interest should harmonize with the laws of nature, right? And we are, let's say, have been created through nature or from nature, and so let's say there's a natural way we are supposed to be, and you said it's to become conscious, self-conscious. Okay, and then I also remembered that Charles Darwin had this theory of evolution where it is the survival of the fittest. Like a fight in nature, whoever is the fittest will continue to exist, and whoever is not will not continue. So with the human beings, there's always, let's say, some human beings with lots of, I'm going to use the word advantage, and some with not this much advantage, let's say. And so with the, let's say, with the battle that happens in nature, we could have a similar thing happening with the human beings, battling with each other. I don't want to use necessarily competing, but sort of battling to express themselves, let's say, to have their self-interest. And it can happen at, I suppose, those, outwardly what maybe Victor has been pointing to, that your self-interest might harm others, where in the sense is that if you are more successful than others, the ones who are less successful, they'll, I don't want to use the word die out, but they will be, how can I say, suffer in some way, and while the ones who are stronger will continue to get stronger. So we could look at it in a material way in terms of money. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But I don't want to make it only on, let's say, on that basis alone, because this is meant to be a spiritual discussion show, and we are meant to look at all aspects of life. So my question, Gregory, is we're looking at this natural process of, in quotes, the self-interest, where we are turning from unconscious spirit germ, as you said it, to turn into a conscious, a self-conscious spirit. And so is that like, in quotes, survival of the fittest, like the fittest spirit, where the strongest spirit sort of wins out over the weakest spirit, or has everybody got the same opportunity and capability to become from unconscious spirit germ to a self-conscious spirit germ?
Well, thanks for that particular question. Charles Darwin's observation are based basically on intellectual interpretation. For the spirit is different from the intellect. So when you have a collection of observations and you interpret it in a one-sided way, then you arrive at the conclusion of Charles Darwin. What is discussed here is of spirit, not of the intellect. Where in the case of Charles Darwin, he mentioned survival of the fittest. Of course, the fittest will survive if and only if its activities are in accordance with the will of his creator. Else, when you have the case of brutal force, as we had seen with many civilizations, before too long, they collapse internally. So, how do you interpret that? What Darwin had observed in the animal kingdom and in the plant kingdom are external. It doesn't mirror precisely the laws of creation the way they are supposed to be. Now you look at the case, the example Christ gave, and when he was asked, and who is my neighbor? And he gave the example of someone who fell among robbers, was beaten. A priest came, went one way, a Levite came, went another. Then came the good Samaritan, who took care of that guy. So, because that guy was in a situation where he couldn't help himself, should he have been allowed to die? If you are to apply Charles Darwin's theories, then that person should be ignored. But that was not the case. And that is why you have, when neighbor is mentioned, it means those people that you swing in resonance with, realizing that they, like yourself, set out as an unconscious spirit gem and need to mature. And therefore, there's the need for support for one another. That is what is meant.
Thank you for giving such a clear and comprehensive answer there.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
go on.
would like to come in. Gregory, could you also, don't you think Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection was also a reflection of what happened spiritually? You may reflect on the parable of the talents, where you had someone given 3, and then 2, and then 1. You could see that the law also applied in that case, the same way it applies in the natural scene.
One should never forget that it is the decisions that the human spirit makes, or it is the impressions which a human spirit is able to interpret, which can either lead it upwards or change it. Or, to put it bluntly, it is the conceptions which we hold within ourselves that either block the way or open the way. When we have a one-sided interpretation, as we have in the so-called Darwinian theory, then we have people coming up and say, because I am stronger than you, let's say physically, therefore I should survive. You should not survive. Many a human spirit, if you observe very carefully, have skills in different directions. No human spirit should be underestimated, for the talents are ingrained. In one earth life, someone might be an opera singer. In another earth life, it could be a teacher. Why should one now look down on other people? The key here is that we have human spirits who need to walk side by side, not one looking down on the other. One is stressing here the spiritual implication. Whenever you have those theories being quoted, they remain theories. For when Christ was asked this question, like he said, he gave the parable of when it comes to when he was asked, who is my neighbor? Take the very simple example. The human spirit in its activities was unable to move forward. Christ himself had to come as a matter of emergency to show the path. Why did he not just ignore and say the laws of creation are there? All right? Whoever comes here is right. Otherwise, they can perish. That did not happen because that lacks love, which love is the basis of our creation. So, with such principles as survival of the fittest, where you have in cases, tests are being put in places. Most of those principles are distortions and reflect the principles of Lucifer, who sets up tests and will not hesitate to drag the human spirit down once it has failed a test. Survival of the fittest does not show any love for those who are weak. It does not support them. Consider very carefully. A child is unwell. Because the parents are fit, should they ignore the child? Because according to Darwin, is survival of the fittest? These are the questions each personality must ask himself. But in understanding that that child is weak at that particular moment, parents support this child to become strong again physically. So whatever is quoted with these theories should be understood in the right sense, such that you do not put down some of theories which will turn out to be detrimental, things which the likes of the Nazis took to be real and decided to decimate all those who are not as physically fit as themselves. That lacks love.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for that. I've got a text from a listener. They're saying, first of all, they're saying, bless you all. So they're a new listener, actually. And the message they've sent is, the light will always shine through when true human beings have the will of the Creator within themselves. And then he says after that, we have had many lifetimes to decide how we wish to be. And Gregory, that sort of reflects what you said about many earth lives that we've had, to sort of become conscious and follow the path of self-consciousness. So thank you, listener, for your comment. Before you say anything, continue, I just want to tell listeners, which is because we're like halfway through the show, or quarter of the way through the show. So, dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. And the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And in fact, if you're interested to get a copy of the Grail message, or want to get more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is self-interest and self-control. We're going to go into self-control soon. And if you want to join in with any question or comments, you can contact us on this UK number, which is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it's actually the same number, but you need to have the international code, which is 0044 7944431366. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And just to let you know, listeners, we are on a new website from today. It's blessradio.co.uk, blessradio.co.uk, and we are still on TuneIn, tunein.com, but you need to search for Bless Space Radio. That's what you need to search for to listen on TuneIn. And we are also on YouTube as usual, which is search on youtube.com, Bless Radio, the number one, not spelling one, Bless Radio, the number one, and then space live stream. And then if 10 minutes after the show, you can join in, listen to a recording, and what you do there is, again, go to youtube.com and look for Bless Radio 1, and then space grail message, then space and the title of tonight's show, which would be Self-Interest and Self-Control. And all our other shows, previous show, are also on YouTube if you want to listen there. We also you can, by looking at our new website, which has got many extra things, there's Twitter there, and you can send messages on it directly on the website as well. So have a look at that too. Okay, Mena, please go ahead.
Yes, I just want Gregory to reflect on the parable of the talents, where a man was going on his journey, and he called his servants and gave them 1 5, the other one 2, and the other one 1. And by the time he returned, the one who had 5 talents made 5 more, the one who had 2 talents made 2 more, and the one who had 1 buried it. And we could you understand how it played out. That the one that was given 1 was taken. That one was taken from him and given to the one that was that made more. Is that not the same law of natural selection? Is the same law that plays out spiritually?
Absolutely not. For what has happened, each personality needs to make a decision. Each personality needs to strive. In the case where there was no striving, as in the case where the talent was buried,
yes,
in accordance with the law of attraction, of homogeneity, you find that one which was kept was attracted to those who have been making the efforts. So we have those who are making effort and those who are not making effort. The word natural selection, one should be very careful. For we all know that one of the key laws is a law of reciprocity. So when one makes a decision, there is a reciprocal action. The case of the person who refused to make a decision to go in accordance with the laws of creation, where he or she had been granted the opportunity to sow, so that it will bring benefit in case of interest on the self, hence that word self-interest. That person did not do it. So in all naturalness, there was basically no activity in that direction. And that is why, in accordance with the laws of the attraction of homogeneity, we find that skill, that talent, was then attracted to those who make use of it. But to call that natural selection is very easy to fall into the hands of Lucifer.
Thank you.
The one who made 5 talents made 5 more, and the one that made 1 is the one he had was taken from him and given to the one that was that made 10. So he had 11. So naturally, someone who doesn't build on his talents would be taken. That would be taken from him. I think it's the same. Um, I'll leave that to the audience to decide.
Okay.
I
It's
don't know
not a
if
matter
you.
of audience deciding. It's a matter
Yeah,
of each person reflecting on these things spiritually,
yeah.
not intellectually,
Okay.
saying injustice where there is no injustice. For you yourself, when you have granted a particular skill for someone to develop and granted him the strength, the power that he needs to do this, if that person doesn't use it, in all naturalness, it should be passed on to those who use it vigorously. It is like that almost in every endeavor. It only means spiritually one should be awake rather than being asleep. But
Yeah.
one has to be very careful in now saying, oh, this according to the law of natural selection. All right. Such things become one-sided because you are not looking at the whole picture.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you for that. I want to move on to the second part of our topic because we've only talked about self-interest, and the title today, this topic discussion tonight is self-interest and self-control. So again, Gregory, I looked at the dictionary, and this is what I found for self-control: the ability to control oneself, in particular one's emotions and desires, is, and they say, you could say, put this in brackets, especially in difficult situations. Now, the previous definition of self-interest, let's say there was an issue that's not really how we would define it. That's like, it was like you could, like you've said already, there's some one-sided way of seeing things. And when we look at things spiritually, it has to be looked at let's say, a global picture. So here, if I say it again, the meaning of self-control in the dictionary: the ability to control oneself, in particular one's emotions and desires, especially, and I think that's in brackets actually, especially in difficult situations. So would you say that definition is sort of an accurate definition, or does that also need amending?
Most of these dictionary definitions are only descriptions which are external observations, intellectual. Self-control, again, has to do with the spirit. The spirit being able to make a decision based on its free will. And also the spirit being able to respond to the reciprocal actions that assail it in such a way that it becomes of benefit to it. That is where the control is. For where we are assailed by many different impressions, how do we respond to these impressions? If we respond to the impressions in such a way that we are able to change ourselves, it is the spirit that is changing. When we do that, then we have control. When we do not respond in such a way that the reciprocal actions or the different reciprocities that assail us, if we do not respond in such a way that to bring us benefit, then we have lost control. For when you look at it very carefully, there are many impressions. How do you respond to it? How do we stand with respect to all these impressions? Do we know the motive behind all these things? So self-control has to do with striving to understand the motive that lies behind all this and make use of these reciprocal actions for the benefit of the spirit.
So thank you for that, Gregory. So you are talking about the intention, knowing the intention, or finding out what is the intention behind things, and then responding to that accordingly. Now, and when I gave the dictionary definition, talked about controlling desires and emotions. So, if somebody says something, let's say, that provokes you, or deliberately provoking you, so the intention is to, let's say, get a reaction from you, probably a negative reaction from you. Are we meant to, how can I say, ignore that, or respond in some sort of, well, I don't want to say the similar kind, that, the guy is provoking us, then we get provoked by the person, or are we just meant to um, um, sort of give him some sweet words to quieten the person down? Because,
Okay.
prob-
Yeah, go on.
yeah,
Yeah. Sorry. Sad. Before Gregory answers your question about responses to actions.
yeah.
We did not look at self-control as a process where an individual has to actually spiritually weigh the decisions he makes, the thoughts, the actions, and the words he puts out intuitively, so
Okay.
as to have, look at them in order to look at the effect of his
So,
actions.
just to understand, so you are
Look
saying,
at the effects
sorry,
itself.
I'm
Yeah,
cutting you now. Sorry.
yeah,
So you are saying before the person should look at before basically look at yourself, how you express yourself. Yes.
yeah.
That.
But it is not a situation where you actually employ an individual to consciously weigh and examine, intuitively, his actions, and to find out the effect it has on himself and others.
Yes. Okay. So Gregory, I think yeah.
We do not see that as self-control.
That is only part description or part explanation.
Okay.
The key lies in the two laws, that of attraction of homogeneity and that of reciprocal action. Now consider very carefully. There was a case of one teacher who was going from town to town, teaching people about the will of the Almighty. He got to this particular town and he was going to consume some fruits because he was very hungry. As he was about to eat them, a little girl ran towards him and pushed those fruits from his hand, and they fell off. He did not respond, but he was worried. Why did that happen? Only later to know that the fruits that he was going to consume were poisonous fruits. So, seen from an earthly intellectual point of view, that girl has deprived this man the opportunity to quench his hunger. Seen from a spiritual point of view, that girl has saved the life of this teacher. Ask yourself, which side do you think is more correct?
Yeah, I don't understand that, but the final decision was made by the man who actually reflected upon the action itself, where the girl had to push him, and responding to that was an intuitive decision. the decision not to take that fruit back from the floor was what saved him, not necessarily the action itself.
What one
Because, you know,
says here is
go on.
the discussions we have are of a spiritual nature, and therefore, many a time we should strive to use our intuition to comprehend these activities rather than looking at one side or looking at the external part of it and only choosing that. That has always been the problem. For you may find the case where you're taking a stroll, somebody accosts you, and you cannot even explain it. You haven't done anything wrong. And yet the person goes on. And then you didn't respond. Only later to find that in distracting you and accosting you, that particular personality has helped in delaying you such that you will not meet a catastrophe in front. Most of the things we experience, we should strive to look at them, to examine them spiritually, rather than external interpretations to it. Only then will it make sense and be of benefit to the spirit, for it is the spirit that is alive.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Can I quickly ask you? You know, there's this injunction in the Bible. You know, Christ clearly pointed out or told us that, you know, if you're slapped on the right cheek, turn the left cheek. How does that play out to self-control and self-interest? How do you see
every activity is either a return or an initiation. Most of those that you are referring to are returns, such that that personality will learn spiritually from that particular scenario and change immediately. And in learning the lessons spiritually, he or she becomes free from further reciprocal actions which would have sunk him or her. Again, most of these sayings must be reflected on spiritually.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I think at this juncture it is good we declare that, you know, the purpose is just to, you know, get people to read the grail message, and we're not actually trying to explain or trying to, you know, make or give clarity to whatever happens in creation. It's for them to actually go to the work and examine it and make it theirs. Because, you know, nature plays out differently to every individual. I'm sad.
Yes. So, well, if I were to continue from what you're saying, so basically each one is an individual, and how each one responds is really for them to sort of come to their own reflection, because no two people will make the same decision in the same situation because of, you know, how they are sensing that situation. So and so, yes, to give a straight, like, definitive answer, do this or do that, and I know Gregory said it in the past as well, that is not what we are here to do, to tell you to do this and make rules for this situation, make rules for that, because, as you know, for every rule there's always an exception, and guess what, one day it will be the exception that applies, not the rule. So we don't, and none of us want to, let's say, tie ourselves to declare something, do this, and then suddenly one person, because he listened to what we said, rather than reflect on what he or she rather is going through, deal with it themselves, because it is meant to be, everybody has to take responsibility for their own actions and decisions, and not we tell them this is how it is, and you just follow it like a formula, so that's so Gregory, is that reasonable what I've just said there?
That is very reasonable, because each human spirit has the free will to make decisions. And like we have stressed, that free will helps us in the how. And that has been stressed. To be or not to be has never been the question, because everyone wants to be. How to be, that is where the free will comes in. Therefore, we should make use of this free will, which is based on the spiritual, being able to make decisions spiritually. That is what counts. What we have externally are only a consequence of spiritual decisions that have been made in the past.
Now, there's a question I've received from a listener, so I'll put that to you, Gregory. And this is actually, I know we moved on to the topic of self-control, but this is on the thing we discussed earlier, self-interest. So here we go. Will there come a time when the man of today adapts himself to the will of the Almighty for the interests of everyone on earth? So I'll say it again. Will there come a time when the man of today adapts himself to the will of the Almighty for the interests of everyone on earth? That's to Gregory.
There could come a time when the so-called man of today will be compelled through reciprocal activities to adjust to the laws of creation through which he himself or herself came into existence. That one is the key. So when it is said to the interest of others, one is only assuming that it's only human spirits that are on earth. What about the environment? What about those forces which help nature? That means they are the administrators of nature. All this have to be considered. What about the helpers who help in our thought forms, in our other activities? These have to be considered. So such a question will only make sense when the will of the Almighty, which swings with the love of the Almighty, is considered. Whoever is able to mature to that extent that his activities or her activities are such that it will be of benefit to creation, then those benefits will be also accrued to others who, like him, are striving to come to better recognition. Nature has already granted and continues to grant the object, the processes, the cognitions which man needs. It is man's responsibility to move from these cognitions to recognitions. Recognitions in the sense, having allowed these cognitions to sink in, is able to strive in such a way and know how to use these forces which nature has granted for its own benefit and for the benefit of nature and that all that has come into existence.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. One second, Victor, Mena. I just want to again remind the listeners, we are listening to Bless Radio, or you are listening to Bless Radio, and the this is the spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And the topic we're discussing tonight is self-interest and self-control. And if you would like to join us with any question or comments, the number to contact us is 079, this is a UK number, 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. And just to remind you listeners, we are now broadcasting on a new website, which is blessradio.co.uk. And we are back on tunein.com as well, but the name is Bless Space Radio. We're also on YouTube, which is look for Bless Radio, the number 1 space live stream for the live show. And after 10 minutes, you can listen to our recording, the recording of this show, which is again on YouTube. Bless Radio number 1, and then it's Bless Radio 1 and space Grail message, and then the topic for tonight's show, which is self-interest and self-control. And of course, if you want to know more about the Grail message or get a copy for the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail message, MESSAGE.com. I know there's a little bit of background sound at the back. I don't know where it is, but just be aware of that, please. So,
sorry, Sad, can
yes?
you give me 10 minutes? I'll be back soon.
Okay, Mena, you and I will continue.
Yeah.
If I can ask you, Mena, some question, if that's okay.
No. Can I?
Or you want to ask me? Or do you want to ask me?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
how would you respond to the question? I don't know. I think Gregory did mention that self-interest is good.
Yes.
Now, this is a question. It says, what dangers hold with having self-interest, especially when others can be harmed?
Can you just repeat that again, please?
I said, what dangers hold with having self-interest?
Yes.
Especially when others can be harmed. So what is the danger?
I think there is something happening currently, which is very good illustration of this right now. And I know we don't talk about politics here as such, but real life events are going on. And I think there's a very clear illustration right now. So you probably heard in the news that U.S. troops are being withdrawn or have been agreed to be withdrawn from northern Syria, where these Kurdish allies of U.S. were, occupying the territory and defending that territory, and they were fighting the IS people, that, let's say, they succeeded in that, and then the Americans decided that, or Mr. Trump specifically, decided that he doesn't need to have his troops anymore there, and he let everybody know that he's going to remove them. And the next thing happened, Turkey decides that, these Syrian Kurds in that territory are their enemy. I mean, they didn't decide they were their enemy just now. They already believed them to be enemy. And they said, okay, now the Americans are gone. We will now attack them and take over that area. And suddenly, where there was, you could say, some peace there, suddenly we have this war. And it's all... The topic, the question you asked is about self-interest and the dangers.
Yeah.
So I think very clearly what you can see is America has a self-interest. I know we're talking politics here, but it's a very clear example. So I don't think nobody's denying anything here. Americans have chosen, they've done their job, which is to remove ISIS or destroy ISIS. So they don't need to be there anymore. So their self-interest is no more to stay there. So they're moving out. However, they were supporting these Kurds with military weapons and I'm sure intelligence and what else, and suddenly that has been removed because they don't need them now. And then Turkey saw, these people are weak. When the Americans are there, we could never attack them. and now here's our chance to attack them. Well, they don't say attacking; they're clearing the area to make some zone for their own buffer zone, but they do actually
Yeah.
don't like them. So Turkey is doing their own interests. But guess what the thing is? What's happening next? Now I know it's getting complicated, but now those Kurds are making ally with the Syrian army of the I know because Syria is not obviously split into many
Yeah.
areas with different occupying forces, and now they're saying okay to the Syrian government, who I don't think they're so friendly with, but suddenly they have a common interest. Let's
Yeah.
get this land that Turkey is attacking and get it back. Suddenly the whole thing is becoming unstable again, where there was relative stability. It was not perfect. So you see the danger, just war, continuous war. All it is before somebody else was doing the war, now somebody else is doing the war. So if everybody has purely acting on their self-interest, can you see that all you get is always trouble? I mean, here if I were to put a little bit more context here, the more powerful country or group has a greater effect than the weaker one, right? It's is more able to express their self-interest than the weaker one, in quotes, right? But the weaker ones are not so weak because they can make ally with another person. So the point is, it's getting very complicated. It's getting very dangerous. It's just it doesn't seem to be any peaceful, beneficial effects. Only harmful effect. Sorry, you wanted to come in now, Mena.
Yes, I did want to. Let me put some clarification on that. Now, the self-interest which you did express, there is, the Americans pulling out of, northern Syria. Was that bad in itself? Because, they actually know others can be harmed. But they said, well, we don't have any purpose here.
Mm-hmm.
We have to pull out.
Yes.
So how do you see that as, wrong in itself?
You see?
Hello?
Yes. Oh, hello, Gregory. You're back?
Yes, I am. Thanks.
Okay. At the moment, Mena and I are having, let's say, a question and answer between ourselves. So maybe you can just listen to what we are saying. Just so to fill you in, what's happened is Mena asked me a question about self-interest, actually, where what are the potential dangers and harmful of self-interest, and I just gave an example that is currently happening in the news of.
Sorry, I said, what is the danger? What danger holds with having self-interest, especially
what
when
danger?
Others can be harmed? Yeah.
Yes,
What
and I gave an
self-interest, especially when others can be harmed.
When others can be harmed, yes.
Maybe Gregory can answer that.
Well, no, because there's no point, because you and I are talking now. So let's stick to the original, because there's no point changing it. Gregory. So I gave an example that is currently happening in Syria, northern Syria. I know it's political, but we can. I think it's a very good illustration of where the Americans or Mr. Trump has decided to withdraw his troops from the northern Syria. And the Kurds that are in that area, who they were allies with, suddenly are left on their own with and suddenly Turkey sees that an opportunity to sort of invade that area and make their buffer zone. That's what they declare, and suddenly the whole thing is unraveling. There was let's say relative peace, and because somebody's self-interest is sort of been satisfied, let's say in case of America, they have now in quotes withdrawn. Then Turkey saw, okay, this is our opportunity to do our self-interest. And they're endangering the Kurds, the Syrian Kurds, who were at that, in this time having the peaceful place there. And now they're suffering from that. And then they said, okay, we are suffering. What is our self-interest? We need to protect ourselves. Then they called in the Syrian army, who are not really their friends, but they thought, well, they're there. Let's get them involved and defend this area too. So suddenly everybody's putting their hand in when somebody else is removing their hand. And all we see is danger. There's war. There's instability, and because everybody wants to have their self-interest, but this self-interest is clearly, as Gregory has to bring back this, is not in harmony with the laws of creation, which or laws of nature, where you can say there should be a balance, where there should be reciprocity, so you don't think you live on your own on this earth. There's other human beings living here. So every action has a reaction, has a consequence. You consider before you make the decision, you need to weigh what will happen to not just you, but to the people who are, you don't live on the earth on your own. So the consequence doesn't happen just to you. And in the end, guess the thing is, Americans think they have withdrawn, but actually maybe nobody can say for sure. Maybe ISIS, they said the common aim was to remove ISIS. Well, maybe ISIS will come back. So it will just show complete failure. A very short-sighted decision can come into that. And I know I gave this as a political example, but it's so obvious what is going on here, even though it's a bit complicated in terms of different characters in it, but it's so obvious what the dangers are. So I don't know, Mena, if that helps to illustrate what you have asked.
Yeah, I think that's what we're.
I think such a clear example to me, and I know this is not an exact necessarily totally spiritual example, but you can imagine that similarly somebody basically taking advantage, thinking that taking advantage at an expense of another person. Just picture it to yourself even when we say these words, I want to get what I want, but I don't care what I do to somebody else to get it, so I can beat someone, I can kill someone just for the sake of getting what I want. And just listen to the words when you say such thing. They use the word self-interest. It's like a nice, lovely, sugary words that doesn't sound harmful, but when you look at it immediately, self-interest in what context? Just as if you're the only person in the world? Of course not. There is not you the only one. And this is only human beings we are talking about. As Gregory mentioned, there's also the environment, there's also animals, there's other nature beings, which we don't even see. And we don't even care or think about them. So that's obviously not going to work. Okay. Welcome back, Gregory. I think I want to go back to self-control because we have said so much about self-interest, and I don't want us to miss out on that. So now I just want to talk, let me see. Okay, let me do this one. Gregory, is there something we should do, like a training to have self-control? Because you said the self-control should be of the self, which is the spirit. So is there a way we can train our spirit or do some technique or, that we should train ourselves to get self-discipline? That's maybe the word I want to use. Should we do some training or learn things to have self-discipline, to have self-control?
Of course, yes. The only way one can train oneself is by experiencing or by learning from events which have not yet impacted on the personality. Because only what has been experienced stays and lasts for a very long time. One may then use such experiences as guide. At the same time, the possibility is there to see what is happening in different places and try in thoughts to embed yourself in that scenario so as to experience or endure with the suffering of others. In such a way, the spirit very much matures such that it acquires that sort of self-control. For, as we all know, it is the motive behind all activities that count. Once we are able to recognize the motive, then the spirit is able to learn from it, is able to imbibe the lesson. For it is not what you see externally that really determines what should happen, but that motive. if that motive is not in accordance with the laws of creation, such that it should be of benefit to all that exist, then there is a problem. The returns will be such that it will make one denser and one would sink into a level where he or she has to walk up himself or herself to a higher level. So with everything, one must ask, what is the motive force? And that's what you find, be it with the police when they make investigation, or with the lawyers, wherever you go, it is what lies behind it that many try to discover and base their conclusions on that.
Thank you for that, Gregory. What I want to ask you to follow on from what you said, because you say it's always what is the intention behind it, but can one, really know the intention of another person, what they're thinking, what they're really, what is behind them, because you can't see somebody's thoughts, you can't let's say look into their heart. I mean, people say look into their eyes, and so on. But is there really, let's say, 100% sure way of discovering somebody's intentions, or is it only when the actions, when they do the action, that we realize, oh, this is actually what they, because the people can say certain sweet words or particular words, and then they do the action, and you find, oh, the action is different from what their words are. So the intention becomes clearer when they put the action. But can you know it before that? Can you actually detect the intention, or yes, before the action happens?
Of course you can,
Okay.
and very well so. It is only the intellect which is deceived. The spirit is not deceived. The path to the spirit is one's intuition. Therefore, the straight answer is strive to use your intuition again and again. Before too long, things will become clearer and you'll be free.
Thank you. Mena, did you want to ask something?
No, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's fine. I'm just looking. We actually have a lot of things that we can talk about. I'm just trying to see what would be appropriate now. Okay. Again, to do with sort of techniques or training for self-control. I know, Gregory, you talked about experiencing, but what about sort of, let's say, diet and exercises? It's like training your mind and your body. Are these helpful things like fasting? You see that in many teachings, people they say they fast, and so such types of practices, even meditation and yoga and all that. Would you say any of such practices are helpful for self-control, or it's just for some people and not, or it's helpful to everyone?
When such questions arise, then one needs to look at the methods which are applied. Must one starve the physical body? Which physical body is necessary for one's experiencing on earth because one intends to achieve a particular goal? That is only possible when the intellect is in control. For the physical body is a tool granted to man to experience here on earth. Therefore, it is necessary to give to the physical body all that it needs. One may say the nutrients it needs in order to function correctly. Above all, should man wish to train himself There is the saying, the expression, keep the hearts of your thoughts pure. By so doing, you will bring happiness to your own life. That is not the actual phrase, but one for many who are deciding they should go into the walk in the light of truth and find the correct expression. To keep the hearts of one's thought pure only means one should be very discerning. One should be very watchful. That means the intuition, the intuitive perception is called into activity. It means one should watch and pray for the deep meaning that lies in that. Again, one points to the walk in the light of truth, where all that the human spirit needs is granted.
Thank you for your answer again. Um, okay. And I just want to, well, before I ask you that, Gregory, do you have any quotes from the Grail message which listeners might be interested to hear about the topic tonight, self-interest and self-control?
There are many which one could quote, but it's advisable that each person should strive to get a copy or go to the internet and examine for themselves. I think, or in my own judgment, that is the best way for in making such efforts. The reciprocal action is immediate.
Thank you for that. Okay, I've got another question now. You know, the longing for money is a big motivation for, let's say, majority of humanity to achieve their earthly goals. But when it comes to spiritual life, we don't seem to be so strongly motivated. Why is that?
That is the case where the intellect dominates. The spirit seeks many a thing that is of value. That which is of value brings benefit not only to the spirit, but also to many others. In the case of the intellect, it seeks basically those things which are narrow, wanting to have as much paper, which it may call money. So many have fallen into that trap. One must distinguish that which is of value on the long run, that which is of value not only on earth, but also after one has departed from this earth. If, however, you want that which satisfies the intellect, then, like many others, they may pursue that which is so, in quotes, helpful, and that's here on earth. And that is why you find many only strive after material things and ignore that which has long-lasting value. It is they who have made these decisions, so they will have to live with it.
Thank you for that, Gregory.
Yeah.
Mena, I think you want to say something?
Mm, Yeah, I think the emphasis on today's discussion is actually centered on man's intuition and how he has to, polish his intuition in order to work well for him, so that it doesn't become a slave to his intellect, but to weigh every decision he intellectually makes and actually produces that which has been reflected upon, intuitively weighed, and a product, derived a product which is beneficial not only to himself but to people, the world around him.
Yes,
Is that clear? Yeah.
yes. I mean, that is the focus. I can say that, of course. Maybe we can, Gregory, if you can sort of give another illustration where people can see, um, you know, how the intuition and how the intellect are supposed to work together. Because what we are seeing right in all the examples you've given so far, the intellect is dominating, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Could I ask? So, Gregory, how would you, answer the question? So, what difference would be in the world today if most expressed modesty and self-control?
These are questions which crop up from time to time. In all discoveries, so-called scientific or in the arts, these have taken place only when the human spirit takes the tokens which nature presents, the little things, as far or as long as the human spirit ignore those tokens which the intellect shows, which the spirit shows from time to time, then he or she is likely to go wrong. How the spirit needs to proceed in order to ensure that the intellect is only an executive tool. These have been made very clear in the work in the light of truth. And it is not one giving examples here and there. For the key thing for man to do is to dig into this work, to examine it, to experience it. When that is done, then many a thing will become clear. What one is avoiding here is the example of football, where the spectators know how to score a goal without getting into the field to play the football. There are even better footballers than the ones who are playing in the field. So one will not give further examples. One may only say, go into the work, dig yourself in it, make the best you can of it, and in reciprocity, the benefits spiritually will not fail to come. For if we are to give manifold examples, many will only sit, enjoy these examples, and nothing happens. That is not the purpose of this discussion. The purpose remains the same, that which is spiritual, which means each personality must exert itself to the utmost. And that is the most difficult thing for the human personality.
Thank you again, Gregory, for that. Um, Hopefully, I'm not asking you to give another example, but there's something I'm thinking about with regards to self-controls. Let's say with emotion, and in a way, I did ask this question, but we didn't get to that point to answer it. So I'm just going to say the question again. So let's say, I know this is like an example here. Somebody's provoking you, and you know, to sort of get an outburst from you and make you angry or something, and then we know that we are supposed to have self-control, or maybe even the word restraint, and so we shouldn't get, let's say, angry and have an outburst, even though somebody's trying to provoke us. But then sometimes, if we are gentle with a person, they won't really, uh, let's say, get the message or get the point. They'll just continue their, let's say, bad behavior. So, because we have said one of the law is law of homogeneity, or like attracts like. So if we are soft, somebody's, let's say, being difficult, let's say, with us, and then should we now have an outburst like similar like they are? So like when I say like attracts like, we now also have to do an outburst to sort of to stop them from continuing, or should we just have a talk in a gentle, simple way, like controlled, self-controlled way, but then the person just ignoring and not having the effect? Because the whole point of what our discussion is meant to be is we want to have things that are effective, that people learn. If something is out of order or somebody is misbehaving, we need to be able to act that they stop that behavior. So my question is, if somebody is provoking or doing something to us, how do we respond to that in which works basically in an effective way?
Well, thanks for that particular question. And the solution is likely to be a counter question. Is the person being provoked capable of sensing through his or her intuition the motive behind that provocation? Secondly, when he or she understands the motive behind that provocation, then it will know how to respond to it, for there is always help. And it is very wrong to think because the man of the muscle or the person with the arms provokes, shows that person is strong. Actually, for many who resort to arms for destruction, they only provide evidence of their weakness. It means they're not capable, because they want a dwelling, they want a fight. And you ask yourself, for one who is disciplined, that particular personality will know how to resolve crisis. But to have resolved to deception everywhere and threatening with arms shows weakness, not strength. It shows the lack of self-control. So most of the concepts which many hold have been made intellectually, have been turned upside down. It is the weak ones who, because they have access to arms that threaten, those ones who are sound within themselves will sense how to protect themselves, not with arms per se, but through other means. Very sadly here on earth, the man of the muscle, just like a boxer, is the one who dictates how he or she wants things to be. But such dictates only last for a very short while. Before long, because that person or that personality lacks the inner stability, things will fall apart again because the center, that inner stability, cannot hold. He lacks perseverance. He lacks the knowledge. And what a person doesn't have, they cannot give. All that they have is brute force. And many think only brute force is the solution. Such solutions are very temporal. They don't last long.
Thank you, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And the topic we're discussing tonight is spiritual interest and self-interest and self-control. And if you want to join us with any questions or comments, you can contact us on this UK number, which is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00 44 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you want to get a copy of the Grail message or want some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com, which is I spell that www.grail GRAIL message MESSAGE.com. And listeners, I want to also let you know that we're holding an introductory talk on the Grail message in 2 weeks' time in London. It is near Baker Street. It's on Monday, the 28th of October, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Theosophical Society, and the address is 50 Gloucester Place, London. I'm just going to check the address, 1 second for that. Just find that for you. Yes, there we go. So there's 50 Gloucester Place, London, W1U 8EA. That's Monday the 28th of October, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Theosophical Society in the reference library. So yes, if you're interested, you can come to that. That's for people in London or near London. You can come to that. Gregory, I've got a question also from a listener, which I just noticed it now. It says, I'm going to say it and then I'm going to reword it if I hope the listener doesn't mind that. But the question the listener is asking, is self-control also to do with the temperaments? For example, if one is excited or lethargic, is this because of radiations of the blood, and what should one do about this? So I would like to reword that a bit. So I would like to say that, so we have every person is an individual, and then there are like categories, you can say, certain type of temperaments people have. Some I was going to use this word hot-blooded or cold-blooded, but it's not that really. It's more, some are more excitable, let's say, and in this case the person said some lethargic. I don't know if that's a temperament, but in any case, so the question is, Gregory, if we have a different type of temperament, is our self-control determined by the type of temperament we have? or is everybody capable of control? Having self-control just as equally as any other person. So it's not so to do with any temperament.
As you will find, these temperaments influence self-control, just as the food we eat, the drinks we have. Consider very simply someone who consumes so much alcohol, or someone who smokes many cigarettes. In the case of alcohol, it does influence the blood radiation, which radiation is necessary for the communication between the human spirit and the human body. The human spirits have other bodies, which also...
Gregory, sorry, can I just stop you? There's a bit of echo going on.
In the background, it's not mine.
I don't know, it's like somebody's playing while we are talking. So, okay, it's stopped now. I'm glad, yeah. Sorry, Gregory, because we couldn't really hear you properly because of that. So it looks like it's stopped now. So go ahead, please continue.
Like I mentioned, the temperaments do influence the blood radiation, but the spirit's response is not dependent on temperament. It's only an influence which changes it a bit. But a mature spirit should be able to respond to these things accordingly. For more information, one should go into the Walk in the Light of Truth, where temperaments are discussed in full and how it influences or how it impacts the human spirit.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Mena, did you want to say something?
No, I think it's that's comprehensive enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just thinking about self-interest.
Yeah.
Because, we've talked a lot now about self-control, so I just thought we could go back to self-interest. Now, in a way, Gregory, let's just talk about what Jesus, sayings of Jesus in a way, and just say if the grail message is like a building up of what Jesus said, or it's something different from what Jesus said. So the example I'm going to give you here is one statement of Jesus was, love thy neighbor as thyself. And that's very pertinent to our topic tonight, with self-interest and self-control. So would you say, Gregory, that the grail messages come to add to what Jesus said, or to explain what Jesus said, and if so, or what, or no, if not, please tell us what is the purpose of the grail message.
The Walk in the Light of Truth first explains the actual and real meaning, the pertinent meaning of the genuine words of Christ. So it gives clarification and all that. But the walk itself, in the light of truth, is like a map. A map which shows all that you have in creation, all the processes in creation, the basis, the laws of creation. By laws of creation, one means those features of creation which remain unchangeable. That challenges the intuition of man. The walk in the light of truth shows the connection between the different parts of creation, the purpose of man, why he or she has incarnated. It gives everything that the human spirit needs to know in creation. That is a massive task. Whatever is said here is only a token, almost meaningless. But should a discerning personality digs himself or herself into it, before long, he or she will experience intuitively what the message offers. And like has been stressed, the reciprocal action is immediate. Not only will there be clarity in the processes of nature, but we understand nature itself, through which it came into existence. We understand creation itself, not in a superficial manner, but in a very deep manner.
Thank you. I've got an example or a question to do with, for self-interest with regards to man and woman, and let's think of a very close relationship like marriage. So
Yeah.
obviously,
Sorry, before you ask that question, Sat,
yeah.
since we're talking about neighbor, someone has asked, is the heart, soul, and spirits of oneself their nearest neighbor also?
Can you just repeat that question?
Yeah,
Yes.
someone has asked, is not the heart, the soul, and the spirit of oneself their nearest neighbor also?
Is our neighbor also?
Yeah, I mean, do you take the heart, the soul, and spirit as one's neighbor?
There seems to be so much confusion about these things. The spirit is the inner core. When it wears the different clothing, we talk of the soul, and then we have the body. When the heart is referred to, basically it's referring to the spirit. Again, these are concepts which many will find very helpful when they make the attempt to examine the work in the light of truth, the grail message.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask my question, which is basically in a relationship, let's say man and woman, like a marriage. Obviously, the woman has a. I don't like this word self-interest anymore. In a way, it's sort of, well, in an earthly sense. Let's say it sounds too negative, but so. So my question is, Gregory, when somebody's in that sort of relationship, very close one, obviously, let's say each person has his own individual sort of I use the word desires in the sense of, not in the sense of in a sexual way. I meant in basically, let's say there are things that we like, and then the other person has a different interest, let's say, and also there's things that women like and say some things that men like, and so in a relationship, when the couple as a couple, how do they sort of get to is that a sort of a way to experience, how can I say, to live in harmony in a way where each one is really self-expressed? Because what I wanted to say is, Gregory, we have free will. You said that we have free will. And yes, of course, when you have marriage, it's a free decision to be with the other person. and then sometimes you will think, okay, I want to do this, and the other person will want to do something else, and sometimes you might feel, oh, I'm not free anymore. I mean, it's not that your free will has been removed, but it's just like you don't feel so self-expressed. So my question would be, how can one understand each other so that each one gives us that space to be free to act. They want to act, and the other one also. Basically, both people in that couple relationship are always, let's say, in a happy space, and So, what I want to, in a way, does it mean we have to discuss everything? Does it mean that how can one find this? I'm going to use this word, like it sounds a bit like sweet words again, like a happy balance. Is there a way you can always have what it seems you can't have everything you want, but still you want to be happy, and so how can we? So can we always be happy continuously, or is there meant to be these ups and downs? So it's like the self-expression goes. Yes, you can have that self-expression like to your max, and then sometimes you have to share. Do something together, and then the other person has their sort of self-expression fully expressed, and then so is that how life is? I don't like this word up and down, like I say, but it sounds sort of negative again. But is that how we are meant to learn?
Can we respond to it so that it's not too long, so many are able to follow?
I'm just making the question. Yeah, so basically,
I know.
Yes. Okay, so the question simply is, can a couple in a relationship get full self-expression all the time, or is it not possible? It's only at certain points in time that can happen to allow to have the balance, basically.
Marriage or unions such as you have mentioned only means we have two people who are striving towards the same goal, such that their activities complement, not opposite. Their activities complement each other, one another. When you have that, we have marriages which are made in heaven. But one should never forget that we have the case of Diamond. Diamond, like many say, is a woman's or a girl's best friend. Diamond has to be polished. So, in a union such as marriage, where the couples have a similar goal, which goal basically is to return back home as self-conscious human spirit, there is a need to work together, purify themselves, just like you polish diamond. Therefore, when they go through this process of polishing, should they throw away each other because they have challenges, which challenges they themselves need to go through in order to fulfill the goal of the union? These are the questions that every couple, every marriage must look into. If, however, the original motive is basically that of the intellect, then it is temporal. It means it will not hold for long. So a couple should welcome the challenges as long as they wish or they strive to fulfill their vow towards that high goal which they themselves have intentionally placed in front. So let no couple complain, saying, I want to be myself. The problem has always been thinking that as a couple, there is competition. No, there is complementarity. Many a thing the man cannot do, the woman will do. Many a thing the woman cannot do, the man will do. In such a way, they complement. Like we said, the problem has always been many consider complementarity to be opposite. They are not one and the same. However, what one has mentioned here can be looked into when one digs into the work in the light of truth, the grail message. There, all is laid bare.
All right.
Thank you so
Quickly,
much.
one question before you clock out. When there's a conflict of self-interest, what do you recommend should be the applying formula?
One will never give a formula other than for many to go into the work, examine it. Through their intuition, they themselves will know that which they need to do.
Thank you for that, Gregory.
Thank
Okay, we have come to the end of our show, listeners. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to say goodbye. Starting with you, Mena, anything you'd like to say to the listeners?
Yeah, thanks for listening, and have a good week ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. And Gregory, anything you'd like to say to the listeners?
We wish everybody well.
Thanks for that. So, dear listeners, thank you for joining in tonight. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday with another topic, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Please do have a look at our website, blessradio.co.uk, which is a new website now. And just a reminder before I go, there's an introductory talk to the Grail message in London in 2 weeks' time on Monday, the 28th of October at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Near Baker Street. The address is Theosophical Society, 50 Gloucester Place, London, W1U 8EA, and it's in the reference library at the Theosophical Society, and you're welcome to attend if you can. So all the best, everyone. I wish you a great week. God bless.